If you're gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgendered, or any other sexual orientation that is deemed not the social norm in our society, you probably ask yourself all the time, why me? When I was about 15, I started realizing that, I might like guys. Just before I turned 17, I realized that I was gay, and that's when I told most of my friends. Over 3 years, it took me to realize exactly who I was and who I was going to tell, how I was going to tell them, and it was pretty scary too. I ended up telling my parents by writing a letter, and I left the house after I wrote it. I thought my friends would be okay with it, but it was my family more so. I've always felt like telling my family news, even though this isn't bad news, it felt like it to me, so I didn't want to have to give them that kind of news. For me, it was accepting myself and realizing that I didn't have to be afraid and didn't have to worry that if someone didn't like me because I was gay. Half my relatives knew and decided not to tell me. And I was actually surprised by my parents' reaction. I thought they would be at least a little upset or want to talk about it, but all they asked me is why I thought they would care about that. It got better when I first came out because, like I said, I went away to university, so going away knowing that that's who I was, being acceptable, being open about who I was, it made it easier for me to meet people, make friends. I didn't feel like I had to hide anything from them. And then when I moved home, it was a completely different atmosphere. My parents, like my mother's not big on talking about it, but she's okay with it. And my dad, who used to be completely against it, like he didn't like gay people being around him, he'll argue with someone if they say even the slightest thing homophobic. So I think that if we get out more, like making videos like this is a great way to tell people that you have to stand up for yourself and not just think that, okay, 3 small words will make the world a different place. As long as you stick by those words though, it can get better.
It was more of a assumed thing. It was just natural as opposed to actually coming out and saying it. But once I actually formally came out to my parents, to my friends, everyone was so unsurprised that they had been waiting for me to flip the switch in my own mind to understand it.
I had a girlfriend for the last almost 2 years now, and before that she's my first girlfriend, but before that no one really said anything, but again it was always kind of assumed. No one was really shocked when I said, hey, I have a girlfriend. They were like, oh, no kidding, hey?
It was always something that was there but never addressed. I just assumed it was part of my sexuality. It never seemed weird.
My whole coming out process wasn't a regular coming out process because I didn't overly say anything. I was just kind of like, yeah, I have a girlfriend. My friends were like, oh, okay, that's cool, like that's fine. It's not like we're gonna change how we treat you or anything like that. The hardest part was probably for my parents, and it wasn't even that hard. It was more hard on me than it was on them. So I wrote it in a letter and left it somewhere and put a little post-it note on the counter saying, hey, I put a letter in the first drawer in your dresser, please read it. And then I kind of left and came home that night. And my mom was like, I still love you, like we're not gonna change. My dad was like, yeah, same thing, like we're not gonna treat you any differently. And ever since then it was fine. We actually went to Florida in August, like my mom, my dad, me, and my girlfriend. So it's working out well, yeah.
Good to know that not every experience of coming out is a negative one, right?
No, it's definitely not.
Yeah. I thought I would be really calm, but when it came to physically saying the words, they were caught in my throat. I thought that I would be going through this massive transformation and that I would be becoming, I would know more about myself, but it was still one level of change out of an entire lifetime of change, right? It was just one step. But I feel that if I hadn't have gone through those motions and formally put it into words, I wouldn't be where I am now. I'd still be holding myself back. You have to go through all those experiences to know that this is what your body and your brain wants as opposed to just what you think that you should be doing because nothing else is working.
My parents I was a little nervous about, and it wasn't even as much my mom. It was more so my dad because he was born and raised strict Catholic, and I was like, oh crap. I didn't really know what to do, so I kind of took the approach of telling my mom first and was like, oh, well, she'll kind of tell my dad, and if she does that, then it'll be fine, because if I just go to my dad, like, I was really nervous of what to say. But everybody took it really well. I didn't really have a huge problem with it. I have a lot of gay friends, and so everyone was really supportive of each other, and it wasn't really that big of a deal, and I didn't really change from it either. It was more like I am who I am, and I always had had that sort of style. And I think that's why some people were like, oh yeah, that doesn't shock me. Because I kind of always took things at my own pace, did things my own way, and it didn't really change anything. Knowing that I can be myself and in a comfortable environment makes me feel like really good about myself. Like, I can go up to someone and say how I feel about something without being as judged. And since, you know, if I say, oh, I have a girlfriend, they're like, oh, hey, that's cool. And then we'll just talk about different things, and it kind of goes on from there. But no, it's great. It's more comfortable, much more comfortable.
Being part of this very fiercely proud community, right? Don't back down from their ideas and their, I don't know, when you come out, you're more sure of yourself, if that, of course, is your path. Especially being part of the Sexual Diversity Center on campus, especially during my first couple of years, I had so many more options and experiences open to me than I would if I was a student on my own, dealing with this on my own. I had a very good support group here too, so that made all the difference in my world.
But when the It Gets Better videos were coming out and the projects were coming out, everyone was watching them and everyone was encouraged, everyone was inspired, and everyone thought it was a really good idea. Because you shouldn't be ashamed of who you are, really. It's who you are. You're not going to be able to change that.
Own it. Don't let somebody else make you feel like the victim because of your genes, the way that you were born, right? You can't change the person that you are. That's like being made fun of because you're short. So these videos are all about telling people, no, you're better than this. It does get better.
It's been just about 6 years now.
It was a lot of thinking, a lot of worrying, and then I remember one night I was in drama class, and it just kind of happened, and it came out, and of course everybody knew, so they were like, it was fine with them, and then I remember on the drive home with my mother, I told her, and so there was a while between when I first told my best friend and that, but it was good.
Life got better after I first came out, I guess just because I could kind of start being who I was in that abstract sense.
You live who you are all the time, I think, but I think there was a sense of, oh, the weight's all gone. It just kind of blew away. Because before, I kind of always felt like I was walking on eggshells, or I always had to be really careful of what I said and what I did.
I know it's originally aimed towards the kids after the events in the US, but for anyone, just to say, you know, life ain't so bad on this side of the fence.
For people who are being bullied, people who are abused, and people in any situation, it's such a strong, universal message that I think everyone can use, and I think that's the real power and strength of it. After a while, you start to settle into a new kind of way of being. It's very different, but it's a better feeling after everything's done.
I'd say it's been about 10 years now. I was really anxious. I told my mom first, and she asked me, "Are you sure?" She said, "You're my son, and I love you," and we both cried. It was really nice. I felt better when I told her. The next day I got home from school, and she said that she didn't want me to carry this anymore. She said I've held on to it for too long, and she wanted me to tell my dad and my sister. I told them, and again, well, Dad asked, "Are you sure?" And Steph comes over to me, my sister, and she gives me a big hug, and she, like at this time I was crying, and she just starts rocking me, and she says, "It's okay." And Dad came over to me and gave me a big hug, and I remember looking over my dad's shoulder as I was crying, and I looked at my mom's eyes, and she was crying and nodding as if to say, "I told you it would be okay." Scariest thing, I didn't know what was going to happen. I honestly thought that they would not love me anymore. That was my biggest worry. When it came out, it felt like this huge weight was lifted off me. After the situations with people committing suicide down the States, it broke my heart. And to know that a project like this exists, to let people know that there are resources, that there are people you can talk to, that's really reassuring, that's really comforting for people.
A friend of mine came out, and I kind of said, "You know what, you're my friend, it doesn't matter who you are, you're still my friend, you're still my bro."
Why can't you just live your life and let them live their lives, and why the hate?
We're all human beings, we all deserve to be treated equal. We're all the same, doesn't matter who we are, just love everybody. Believe me.
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 Now it's your turn to make someone else believe.
But I promise it gets better. You are beautiful in every way. Just have hope and trust a positive from there.